Hi guys, thanks for tuning in to another episode of Nuggets News. What a week for Ethereum it's been, and some interesting action across the market. So a lot of green, although it's been a bit of a weak finish over the weekend here, the last few hours. We're going to go over all the news, dive in and check it out, and let you know a fantastic trade that we put on and the exact thought process behind it. So on this day in history, 2015, Mt. Gox founder Mark Capellas was charged with embezzlement. A lot of you know that story. And it's been a year since Jamie Dimon called Bitcoin a fraud, and since China announced they're going to close all those exchanges a couple of weeks after they'd banned ICOs. And this was crazy. I was live streaming at the time. Check that out. The thought process at the time, because Bitcoin bottomed half an hour after when we were buying it around that $3,000 mark. So be sure to check that little clip out. And 10 years since the collapse of Lehman Brothers, and thanks to the banks and the GFC, I guess, because personally I would have never gone down the rabbit hole in 2009 and thereafter watching all those documentaries if that had not have happened. The banks seem to be in the headlines every week in Australia. There's class action against the big banks. Basically, anyone's money they're looking after that should have been in cash earning a pretty high interest rate in a savings account, they were undercutting them and ripping them off. $1 billion. Nothing ceases to amaze me now, I guess. And well done to those people that have taken control of their own super. Some people with as little as $50,000 have made that switch through New Brighton Capital that we've partnered with in just a few clicks to look after their own super. And they're not putting it all in crypto, guys. I know a lot of people have been a bit freaked out. You can put as much or as little as you want. Put the rest in shares, ETFs, diversify, all that sort of thing. But chat to the guys there if you're interested. So Coinbase this week, and a few other of the big players in this space, Pantera Capital, a few others here you're going to recognize, Polychain Capital, and Digital Currency Group, but basically lobbying. And we know how Wall Street works, governments work. So this is has got a lot of people a little bit torn about, is this a good thing that they're going to be lobbying and paying officials to get where we want, make inroads in the space? Who knows, guys? Let us know your thoughts about what we think about crypto starting to lobby the US government. Now, this is a great tweet here from Crypto Koala. So we've been speaking for a while about how that mining got really centralized in Bitmain through their three subsidiaries, basically had well over 50% at one point. I think the most it got up to was 53%, but here they are now. That's cut right back to about 30%. So, well done to the competition that are bringing out other chips. The cost has come down. Some people are selling secondhand. So we really are becoming more decentralized away from being so reliant on China, which really was the case, and a bit of fear in the market about this time last year when they did have such a high percentage. What would happen if they ever shut mining down, as well as all the exchanges and so on? News this week. France getting that ICO framework. So we've been talking about this again, about look at the headline, guys. Attract innovators globally. This is exactly that sentence I've been using. Every country that pushes back, there's going to be another country. France is one. Again, a lot of debt. In the EU, there's friction between who's doing what with a central bank, buying bonds, interest rates, and so on. One country's going to say, look, we want these innovators, and it's happening exactly as we expected. So one by one, expect that to continue. CFTC chair. So crypto needs this do no harm approach. Let's take our hands off a little bit here, just like we did with the internet in the early stages. And once again, it's the hero that we all love, Chairman Giancarlo, that's come out and said this. So let's watch what they do, not what they say, and hopefully that gets a bit of follow through. Overstock, letting customers buy Bitcoin via their crypto wallet. Again, guys, one by one, biggest companies in the world starting to get their foot in the door, working with blockchain or working directly with Bitcoin and crypto. Customers want this. Don't listen to what the guys on Wall Street are saying. There's no interest from our clients. We're not pursuing that anymore. Watch what these companies, these tech companies that are open to this technology, watch what they're doing. And as soon as they start to get those customers, watch the banksters and Wall Street come squirming back to try and get those fees and market share. Again, Malta Stock Exchange signing a memorandum of understanding with Binance. So this is the new hot space, guys. I am working on a top 10 security tokens projects video, which I think is going to be very popular with you guys. we want to see these in some big jurisdictions, and that's who's going to win. Once we get an actual security token exchange, Coinbase start trading, or let's see if we get one in Australia or Europe or China. That is going to be huge when we start to move away from these sort of smaller countries, and that's when it's really going to blow up. So yeah. Be selective. Don't just throw money. We don't want another security token bubble like ICOs last year. But the good projects, if you can get on board those, and I spoke about that in a lot more detail in this week's Ask Nugget show if you want to check out more about security tokens. Winklevoss Brothers launching their stablecoin. We've seen a couple of stablecoins this week on top of the Ethereum network, which is really interesting. There's no shortage of stablecoins now, guys. That fear about Tether really shouldn't worry you anymore. There's so many other good ones out there. Maker and Dai is still my personal favorite. I can store that on my ledger. I can trade on a lot of those smaller exchanges now, Radar Relay, take profits into stable coins, and you're never touching any traditional financial systems anymore if you want. I'll continue to talk about that because there's a lot of good projects coming up where we can take profits into gold and silver tokens as well. Again, I touched on that a bit in the Ask Nugget show. So great questions from you guys following up on stuff that we've spoken about recently. Now, last week, Vitalik came out and said that 1000x growth is behind us. And I said, yeah, that's kind of pretty common sense, guys. If Bitcoin does 1000x from here, it's a $200 trillion ridiculously high market cap. So CZ came out. I'm a huge fan of Binance. I hope they continue to innovate. And he said, yeah, 1000x growth is possible. So the truth is somewhere in the middle. Yes, if we in 10 or 20 years time, there's probably going to be a handful of projects, the YouTube, Facebook, Googles, and Amazons that do 1000x. But the hard part is picking what they are going to be. That's why I do so much fundamental research. That's why we do it 24/7 in our group. Hopefully we're picking a couple of those. Hopefully we're picking a few of the ones that do 100x over the next 5 years. But it's certainly not the entire space and every little altcoin out there that's just going to do 100x like some people are promising. It's not going to be that easy. Investing is not that easy. So I think there's definitely arguments on both sides. But this wasn't the only big claim this week. So we saw BitPay come out and predict that altcoins will never come back. So Bitcoin will rebound next year. And I think, definitely that's on the cards. And I also agree that some altcoins will never recover. It's definitely going to be the good ones. I've spoken about it before. There's 5,000, 10,000 ICOs, whatever it is, guys. It really is going to be 99.9% of those are going to fail. But if you do the math, that still means that there can be 100 projects succeed. And as I say, the best 20, the best 10, the best 5 can still produce huge returns. That's why we continually do our fundamentals and stay on top of the news. Mike Novogratz, he's been pretty accurate with his predictions, and that's kind of why I listen to these guys more than just randoms, I guess. Mike's been in Ethereum since, $2. He basically came out the other day and called what he thinks is a bottom. He didn't say the bottom, he said a bottom. So he wants some sort of bounce in the coming weeks or months, and I'll talk about that when we get to the technicals. Tim Draper coming out with probably the biggest prediction, 80 trillion in 15 years. Who knows? If crypto takes over, security tokens take over, it's a new stock market of sorts. Bitcoin becomes any sort of financial system. Any of the infrastructure players become the new internet of sorts. Then, yeah, I think we are looking at a number that starts with the T there in the trillions, guys, at some point in the distant future. I've touched on that already, Vitalik's 100x gains, but as he said here, it's the adoption and real-world use case which we need to be excited about, because if we get 1000x adoption, people in Africa using Bitcoin on a smartphone and so on, guys, price will take care of itself. So again, be a philanthropist. Don't just go out there telling everyone that they should download this app and buy and get rich. Become part of the movement. Explain to 10 people how Bitcoin works, and they're more likely to really get involved in the space. Okay, so this is the big story of the week, the price action in Ethereum and the headlines. So, we saw all sorts of headlines from Ethereum's dead to, ICOs are dumping. And the truth is, guys, they've sold 200,000 ETH in the past month. Some headlines saying bigger and smaller. The truth is that is just a fraction of all the ETH out there. So, that can be a good or a bad thing. The point I want to highlight is that it's not every ICO dumping a heap of Ethereum that has driven the price down. It is like everything. It's the fear and the sentiment and a lot of other people probably selling, and people using margin on BitMEX has been in the news. So there's so many contributing factors. You can't just say it's ICO selling when the numbers say that they've sold less than 5% of all their Ethereum. Now, this number's wrong here, guys. That's got 19 too many. DGX have not sold a million Ethereum. That would be $200 million. So they've sold, maybe about 20 million or so. We knew that vote was coming if you follow DGX and their DAO and how that governance work. But this presents opportunity. Have a look at the projects that have got a lot of Ethereum and a lot of runway. Now, it's different to stocks. Good comments from you guys. It doesn't mean that it's a guaranteed thing. It doesn't necessarily put value in the shares or the token, but it gives you an idea of how much runway they've got left. How much are they spending? Did they sell? Ask questions. Jump into Telegram. And I've heard some pretty horror stories from some projects and even a couple of Australian ones that are smaller that raised, tens of millions of dollars 6 months ago, and they've already run out of money, guys. You've got to be asking the hard questions, looking at the roadmap, put it to the team, and you've got that power to do it. And the more that projects are transparent, the better in this space. Demand that of them. A lot of great articles on Medium. Check out Reddit, where a lot of them are posted there, guys. But all the scaling solutions that are coming. I've spoken about this a lot, but we had a new one this week. So mosaics. I'm not going to dive into it too much, guys, but another layer 2 solution for sharding the actual tokens themselves. And again, a lot of these projects are claiming all these things in white papers. Ethereum gets bashed for a lot of this not happening for another year or 2020 or whatever. But the fact is, guys, they are doing just about everything that a lot of other projects have promised, but everything takes time. Now, during all these headlines, yes, there was a bloodbath. So a bit of tongue in cheek there, guys. I was just so sick of reading blood in the streets. So blood on Ethereum Esplanade. That to me is when you want to be starting to look the other way. As I said, guys, when there is blood and everyone's fearful, and did the Ethereum network get hacked, or is there a bug or anything like that, guys? No, this is all just price action. White's down 90%, and that's what presents opportunity. So that's why I put this tweet out, guys, about scaling. DevCon 4 is a month away now. Tickets are already selling out fast. Ethereum futures, you can argue if that's good or bad. Bitcoin ran up in anticipation of that happening, and then it's gone down ever since. Look, I think Bitcoin was overvalued. I don't think it was the futures, and the volumes on those futures aren't enough to affect price. They're not even trading real Bitcoins. Again, I'm going to explore that the topic of rehypothecation and derivatives versus actual Bitcoin, and how the more I think about it, guys, the more Wall Street does not matter one iota. Sorry, pardon the pun. I really think that people are writing off Ethereum too quickly. Look at the stats. We know how many projects are either directly or indirectly working with Ethereum or ERC20 and their projects. ICOs are still going to raise money in some capacity in the future, and Ethereum has the most nodes at 14,000 decentralized. Vitalik, he's an interesting guy. He says some weird things, but there's just no doubting that he's a genius guy. So that's what gave me confidence. I've got a few questions about the 94 part of this. It's not the top 94 coins, guys. It's, projects, blockchain projects. So check that out. Read that article on Crypto Coin News if you want the details there. I'm going to talk about the trade and exactly how that played out. But at the moment, there's a high degree of correlation. Again, I've been speaking about correlation a lot on the channel. This was a great little website that someone showed me where you can type in any coin over, I think, 1 million market cap, they said. So let's try something that we're all pretty familiar with. Horizon State, we want to buy it with Bitcoin. You can choose your country if you want, but even without that, guys, a quick search tells you price action, what country you can buy it in, and even some exchanges here, Livecoin, that you can buy with credit card and so on. So pretty cool website, exchangeify.io. Check that out as well. So last week, Bitcoin was trading at 61.90, and we were looking for a bounce. We'd put this red box as resistance. We'd had a pretty bad week, and I was saying that, guys, we can't continue at this rate. We'd be way too oversold if we just had another 5 days of red candles. We're going to have at least a bounce or some sort of relief this week, and that's exactly what we've got here. So I'll just show you those cycle brackets. We've had that bounce. I'm looking for maybe a little bit of chop and another leg down tomorrow. And what's going to be interesting is if we break that low of the cycle bracket, does the weakness continue right up until the end of the month, which is around that ETF decision? And it's funny how these things continue to line up. So in the bigger picture here, guys, it's still this weekly equilibrium pattern that the majority of traders are watching. And each time we've had this, bounce, low, bounce, low, bounce, and now we're sort of in this equilibrium. So with that huge red candle last week, we were looking for this bounce and the relief. This is a weak bounce compared to every other bounce we've seen. So we do not want this to roll over. That gets, that's the bearish scenario. And if we're bearish leading into the ETF and, then we get a rejection, that's when we do have to start looking lower. So be patient. It's going to be interesting to see how Bitcoin reacts versus the altcoins. And if altcoins go down, if Bitcoin goes down in this scenario, guys, I definitely think that if you've been patient, you've still got that capital on the sidelines, altcoins are going to trade with that correlation, and some good projects that are already down 95% could be down 96, 7, 8, 99%. Now, that is when you want to be on the other side of that screen, being the calm person going, right, I've done my research, I've been waiting for this time, I know Bitcoin, Ethereum, whatever project it is, I know it's not dead, and that's when you maybe want to be stepping in to buy. Because if we roll over now, the reality is that we're just so close to 6,000 and, this 5-7 level that's been tested so many times here. And the next long-term trend line I've got on the charts is this really long-term trend line from years and months ago right down here. And that's going to put us in the mid-5s, maybe that flush. But again, I just don't think we get a weekly close below 5,000 unless it's incredibly bearish news, all ETFs are rejected, not to be considered, something like that. It's really going to have to scare the market, but my decision, that doesn't even matter to me. I'm looking at that as a buying opportunity for my favorite coins because markets are irrational, just as we saw with Bitcoin and Ethereum this week. So we're watching to see if it rolls over or if we can get a bit of a strong bounce here from this cycle bracket when we open up trading tomorrow, guys. Other than that, let's check out the action that happened in Ethereum. So last week, ETH was trading at 190 and we'd seen all that fear, guys, in the market. Vitalik coming out and saying that 1,000x growth was over. All that stuff was adding to this fear and it continued into this week. Now, what was I looking at and what was I saying, guys? So I was telling you to be patient, and we hadn't had that capitulation in Bitcoin, Ethereum or altcoins, and I wanted the capitulation. I wanted blood in the streets. That's when I'd be looking to sort of step in and, look at BitMEX, look for these violent sell-offs where people are getting liquidated. Again, you want to be on the other side of that trade when sentiment is that bad. So this is what I was saying to my group, during the week. So starting off Wednesday, Ethereum starting to look pretty bloody on both pairs, risk to reward looking very good. Now, guys, I'm not putting out exact calls like last year. I got to the point where I had 44 winners and 1 loser, and I really was feeling that pressure and maybe my ego was getting to me a bit. So I'm really trying to give our members those ideas and learn for themselves. I want to teach them what I'm thinking rather than just giving them those specific entries and exits. Then on that, I said that shorts still haven't really covered, so this can continue into the weekend. I was looking for a stronger bounce to finish off that weekly close last night, and just in an hour and a half trading, guys, I managed to scalp a pretty nice 130% on a position that I had, and I'm going to be doing a detailed tutorial for BitMEX because I know a lot of you guys want to know how this works. And I know a lot of people are saying, well, it's one thing to say it, but guys, I'm doing this. I'm following through on what I'm teaching you. And that's, again, I'm happy to give services like Caleb and Brown a plug because when there was blood in the streets, you pick up the phone at 520 and you've got that Ethereum in your wallet or to BitMEX, wherever you want it, at an average buy price of $171, again, within 10 minutes. So that to me was a fantastic trade there, guys. $171 was my buy price there. Trading, BitMEX, leverage, I've been sitting on my hands. I haven't been trading a lot the past few months because there hasn't been these clear opportunities for huge gains that I have necessarily been waiting for. So well done to the day traders that are shorting and sitting at the screen. That's not what I want to do, guys. I want to be patient and I want to be getting in places like here.